Welcome, Vols and Lady Vols, to Power Tea Talk. From the renovated Cathedral of Lindsey Nelson Stadium to the fanatical landscape of college sports, we're breaking down the hitters, the pitchers, and overanalyzing bullpen usage as the baseball season leads us into spring. I'm Zach, your host, here with my comrade and co-host Daniel. Grab your glove and cap. Let's hit the dirt and grass. It's time to give our all for Tennessee. This is Power Tea Talk. Daniel, there was something special this weekend when baseball starts, NBA's All-Star break, hockey Olympic break, football's over, and it just felt nice to turn on the TV and just hear the metal ping, hearing the glove, hearing the ambient sounds of baseball. No sport has better sounds in all the games. And it just was nice to start off with a 3-0 Tennessee baseball weekend and realize that baseball's here and spring is in the air.
I found myself kind of like that opening weekend of college football where it's like you definitely zero in on your team's game, but then you find yourself like, I want to find whatever mischief is going on as I flip through the channels or I find a 4-box. I was locked in on Tennessee on Friday. But then as they finished up heading into Friday night, I was just like, is there a close game out there? Is there some silly mid-major team that is giving some powerhouse trouble? And I got to just tool around and see what else was going on. And we're at that point in the season where I'm learning rosters constantly, but it's still fun to see baseball on TV.
It's also, as college baseball has just grown exponentially into this almost one of the major sports now. It's not quite there, but it's definitely the third most popular. Spring training's awesome. I enjoy spring training. It wears off like first week in March. They started games earlier. World Baseball Classic's coming up, which I'm sure will be great. So they're starting spring training games a little earlier. But like by the second week, you're just like, okay, I'm ready for real baseball. I'm tired of seeing the 68th guy on the roster coming in the fourth inning. It's nice to like have real baseball that matters. There were some couple upsets over the weekend, like some big ones. You know, Tennessee, of course, had a really good weekend as we're going to talk about more. I really like that college baseball. Like we're going to start in mid-February, and yes, we're going to have to play some doubleheaders. We're going to have some postponements and stuff, but they really own the weekend. Like it was a big deal on social media, ESPN, like all websites were really covering and it just kind of shows, especially with ESPN Plus, we've loved to talk, crap about ESPN Plus. But you think about like 10, 15 years ago, we didn't have this. You couldn't watch Tennessee First Nichols. Like you would just have to listen to John Wilkerson on the radio. Like this is kind of a nice part about technology. It's like, hey, I can watch Tennessee baseball and enjoy baseball this weekend.
You can't. And like, I will say, as someone who is typically like team mute on commentators, pretty much all the commentators I interacted with college baseball are just like, they're low key. They're not trying to overdo it. They're kind of like overall all behave a little more like the low key home team announcer instead of the national ESPN broadcast that kind of grates on you a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And they know the game and they have great conversations about it. And then they splice in a story about a bus ride here and there. And I mean, it really is like, it is both the thing we want to watch because we want meaningful baseball and it's the perfect background noise at the same time.
Yes.
Like it's like, okay, this game got a little out of hand. I'm going to have it on to see if I hear one of those loud pings, but otherwise I'm starting to cook dinner or whatever. And it just gets to exist in the background, which is how it's going to exist for us until the end of MLB playoffs. And I would have it no other way.
And the other thing it should be noted too is ESPN has done a really good job with these local broadcasts of drowning the announcers down a little bit or muting the announcers a little bit and increasing the noise of the fans and the sounds of baseball. Because really that's part of the reason why baseball is so attractive is you're outside, you hear like that murmur throughout the crowd throughout the game. You hear the whether it's the ping of the bat, the crack of the bat, you hear that, knowing when a double play here and the glove hit twice, like it's what makes baseball baseball. So it was nice. And even as Tennessee was taking care of Nichols, it was pretty cool to just have it on the background, catch it a little bit here and there, put something on at like 9 p.m. on Saturday. So it's just awesome to have baseball back. And again, it's like the start of spring, even though spring actually doesn't start for another month.
Yeah, and I mean, everyone's coming out of whatever ice or snowstorm they were interacting with, and so
Right.
it was kind of like a brief reprieve from that. I'll also say, and this is just straight from the announcers' mouths, and I haven't been there in a long time, and I haven't seen the new stadium yet or the renovated stadium. Nothing but high praise
Mm-hmm.
for how the stadium's looking, and I was like, I guess we should not expect anything different given the money they've poured into that. But everyone was talking about how like took a great thing and made it even better. It's a kind of a new landmark, a new footprint. That combined with a team with a lot of energy is like, I don't know. We just it's fun to sit in that group of teams that the energy of the stadium matters. And there's a lot of good examples of that in college baseball. And I'm not even saying Tennessee's number one in that regard, but where we have to be listed. And that makes it fun from the jump, even against a team like Nichols or UNC Asheville.
Impossible. I was told Danny White didn't care about baseball. Anyway, so let's get to the Tennessee baseball team. I don't know if you've heard this, but we have a new manager.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that maybe Monday Tony Vitello didn't want to be the Giants manager anymore, based off some comments, but we do have a new manager. Josh Elander is taking over. So it's been the first week. It didn't seem like to me there was much change to how Tennessee plays baseball with Elander in charge. Same power hitting, power pitching, overwhelm you style. And still early, but looked like a lot of the camaraderie and bravado that has become the signature of Tennessee baseball teams. But as every coach to ever exist, no coach or manager is perfect, despite what our fan graphs and baseball savant sheets like to say sometimes. Baseball is different than the other sports as well. And I feel like there isn't anywhere near the ways to win that football and basketball can, especially as analytics have taken over the game and seeped into college baseball. But I'm sure Josh Elander would tell us privately he would do some things different than Tony Vitello did. If you could pick out one thing that you believe will be different watching the baseballs in 2026 from Tony Vitello baseball teams, what will be the biggest change from Vitello to Elander?
So this isn't me saying that I want this change, as in it's not me saying this better change with Elander at the helm, but just from the opening weekend, it seems like the energy that the team brings, that bravado that you're talking about, is going to be coming. The source of that is going to be the players, and then Elander rarely. Whereas I think it got to a point where it was like still 60 or 70% the players with Vitello at the helm, but definitely 30 or 40% Vitello. We'll see how we go into SEC play and some big matchups coming up, but it seems like it's going to lean a lot more 90% coming from the players, 10% coming from Elander. I don't think he wants to calm it down. I think he likes it, but I don't think it's his personality. Whereas I do think it was Tony's personality, and so just a little quieter, as he moseys around the coach's box, as he moseys around the dugout. We'll see if that sticks when things go south or when we have a really intense series. But I think he's probably said, y'all act like how y'all act, but you're going to see a little bit different mannerisms from me.
A little less the world is not out. A little less us against the world, it seems like. And it's kind of hard to judge over 4 games, like especially against this competition. Like, what have we seen differently? And again, I think with baseball and college baseball, as analytics have leaked into the game more and more, it's hard to have different styles. I would say, too, it's just like, I don't know if there anything needs to be changed. And Elander's been with Vitello the whole time. So I'm sure they are very similar in how they view baseball. Like this is not going to become a small ball baseball team
Mm-mm.
that relies on 88 and locate for pitching. Like that's just
No,
not
this
going to
is
happen.
it's not going to happen. And I also think like uh, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it because I actually was thinking it this weekend, just like thinking about what the schedule is going to look like. I think that he is absolutely going to tell guys like if you hit a home run in a big spot, I expect to see what you would normally do,
Hmm.
but almost with just a little tone of like doing it because that is what you normally do and not doing it because we're trying to put ourselves on the map. And whether that's just a timing thing or what, I just think that I think Elander remembers what it was like to play pretty recently. And he knows that it would be a little bit hypocritical not to act like he would admire that home run if he hit it as, a TCU or Tennessee Volunteer, blah, blah, blah. And so he knows that's going to happen. He's not going to step in front of it at all. But I don't think he's going to egg anything on either. I think he's going to keep it insular. He's going to say this in group right here in this dugout is going to be as intense as we need to be to go to Athens and win or go wherever and win, but not do it in a pointing at other teams way. And that's not a judgment. That's not me saying he should or shouldn't do it that way or not. I just think it's going to operate a little bit more that way, even if I think he is still a bravado psycho underneath the calm demeanor, which is totally fine. I'm fine with it. All these guys are.
I wonder if you would agree with this point. Anytime, and it was so rare because Tennessee has been so successful over the last 5 years, but it seemed like when Tennessee struggled or something went against Tennessee's way, umpire call, bad break in a game, whatever, it felt like the end of the world. Not that the team couldn't come back, because we saw what happened in the College World Series, the famous first game against Florida State. Not that they wouldn't come back or anything, but it felt like Vitello like took it as a personal slight against the entire program as a whole, and that the world was now in a worse place because the umpire missed the ball and strike call and he didn't like it. Because Elander played in minor league baseball, he's probably gone through the ups and downs just as much as any normal minor league baseball player. I wonder if maybe we see a calmer presence when moments are not going well for Tennessee, when you're having an ump that's clearly favoring the home team, when you're having an infield dirt that's not been properly raked, right? It's like those type of things we see in college baseball. I wonder if maybe we see a little bit more of a calmer side when the storm gets choppy.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot more likely that it's like pull the team back into the tunnel a little bit and say, you can either whine about it or you can figure it out. Instead of, I'm going to go to the back of the mound and figure this out with Blue right now. And I
Mhm.
think back to my high school baseball coach, and I'm not comparing, but my high school baseball coach was in the state of North Carolina as one of those guys. He's in the echelon of North Carolina high school baseball coaches. And I love him to death, but he leans Vitello in that way.
Mhm.
He leans, hey, if you want to make this an issue, we can make it an issue, and
Right.
we can go wherever we need to with it. Whereas I could see Elander being a little bit more like, if he hears even a chirp of excuses or, oh, these home fans or blah, 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 he's going to go look at the team, not the other coach, not the fans, not the umpire. Look at the team and say, there's one way to stop it, and kind of put it to them a little bit with a level of intensity that is demanded by this type of conference and program, but in a way that I think we'll all like. I don't think we'll have a distaste for it.
It's so different from Major League Baseball because I try and think of like, could you even be a low key relaxed manager in SEC baseball anymore? I just don't think it's possible. You think of all the top managers, they're all pretty fiery personalities. Like maybe Van Horn might be a little bit more
Yeah,
laid back, but he's
he's been
older.
around the
But even
longest.
yeah, but we've seen him. I mean, him and Vitello got in that scrap a few years ago. So I I'm really curious to see, because they're going to hit a bump. This
Oh,
team's
for
so
sure.
young. This is a different team. They're going to hit a bump. Can Elander pull him through? And I think he can, because he's had that experience as a baseball lifer, essentially. But it is going to be different if like the strike zone's not going their way in the third inning. Then all of a sudden it's, oh, why is Tony? Where's Tony? Why is Tony not like ripping him a new one right now? So but I think the style of play is going to be the exact same. I just, like I said, I have noticed no errors in 4 games, and Vitello seemed to like not really care as much if his guys made mistakes on the diamond. I wonder if maybe Elander's working on cleaning that up a little bit.
I think that's either an Elander thing or just a who we have on the roster thing. I think I'd
Yes,
accept
that's
either
true.
argument at this point,
Mhm.
and we'll get more into that. The one thing I heard consistently from the announcers, and this was all through the Nichols series, and this is them who they probably have more access to it than we do. It didn't sound like they were guessing. They said that you can expect us to be more aggressive on the base paths. If we had to point to one thing to track for the fans throughout the year, I'm interested to see if that's a theme. Maybe it doesn't show up in 4 games enough to know one way or the other, but like I think about yesterday, the UNC Asheville game. Abernathy hits a ball down the line after a really good at bat. He is wheeling around to third base. Ball gets trickles away a little bit, and he gets sent. Like he is like, hey, you're out here because you can play center field and you're fast. Why are we not sending you? He got thrown out by a half a foot upon review. I think Elander's totally fine with that.
Mhm.
Vitello probably would have been too, but I just think the mindset of the team is like we're going to steal that extra base, especially against anyone lower level SEC competition. I think the style is going to be force the issue, and that's either an Elander thing or a we don't have the same firepower thing. And either way, it's I think that's the one consistent thing we heard all weekend is that is you can expect that. And I don't think that means we're going to steal bases like crazy. I just think it means we're going to constantly try to take the extra one.
Yeah, and I don't think we're going to see change. I know Vitello really liked to bunt in random spots.
Yeah,
That would be the other thing. I'm curious if Elander's going to do that. Like, you would have like first and second no out with like the number 5 hitter, and Vitello's like, lay down a bunt. And you're like, what? What
it's
the?
weird.
It was weird, but like he obviously was like, I want homers and slug, which leads into our second, the offensive firepower. And when you think about Tennessee, you think about power hitting, tons of homer, tons of slug. We know this team lost a lot of good players. They lost Gavin Keelan, Andrew Fisher, both top 20 picks last year. Dean Curley goes in the second round. Peebles was not an offensive guy, but incredibly reliable backstop the last couple of years. But we saw last year a lot of young players with a lot of talent that might pick up the slack. Reese Chapman had started hot. We know what kind of talent Levi Clark is. Blaine Brown and Henry Ford are impact transfer backs. So 2-part question for you. What has you most excited about this lineup? Or is there a player that has jumped out to you after 4 games? And then 2, do you expect to see any changes on how Tennessee approaches offense other than we might see a little bit more aggressiveness on the base pass?
The player that has jumped out to me, I could have multiple answers for this, which I think is a good
Mhm.
thing as far as
Yes.
the lineup is concerned. I have my concerns about it. And so I think the fact that I could name multiple, I don't care if it's Nichols, the fact that I can name multiple is a positive. The one that I'm going to say first because I think I'm obligated to is Blaine Brown. I have I don't know how many times I've seen a dude that size that smooth.
Hmm.
That's not to say he's going to go to the pros right away. That's not to say like he's a can't miss. He's pretty long. He's got a little bit of a long swing to go with it. You know, he's vulnerable in spots at the plate. But when he's comfortable and when he's playing smooth, he's got a little bit of speed. That's an extra base hit waiting to happen. And especially because he's on the better side of a platoon, he's going to attack righties without any shyness about him. But if I pull back for a second and I think bigger picture about who I already thought was a dude and is actually more of a dude than I even expected, it's Henry Ford.
Hmm.
That is a guy who, I mean, he's hitting leadoff, which is what I wanted to happen, and I was very, very heartened to see it happen. I was worried that was going to get a little mixed up, and we'll see what happens throughout the season. Love him in the leadoff spot. He constantly has good at bats. He is not afraid to get up on the plate a little bit and make the pitcher make it happen. Force the issue is what I thought of his first few at bats. He's also 6'5", 220, 230 and playing third base.
Yeah,
And, like,
he's
there are
massive.
questions about his defense and long term, maybe he's a, corner outfielder, blah, blah, blah. That's more of a MLB draft conversation. But when this is a guy who absolutely crushed it last year, and the reason he was, like, kind of a funny number 1 to land on transfer portal rankings for us is because everyone expected him to go pro. And so they kind
Right.
of just
Mhm.
expected that other shoe to drop. I mean, he hit 362 at Virginia last year. He had 11 bombs, so double-digit home runs. He has a good approach. He has an on-base percentage over 400. He is a dude who could be a first-round pick. And so when this offense is looking for that kind of firepower, and in the first series where it's still a little bit chilly outside, he launches one center to right center over the batter's eye from the leadoff spot. I'm like, okay, we need that to be the guy. I love it if other people are also the guy, but we need Ford to be the guy. Otherwise, I think we're sunk a little bit lineup wise.
It it seems crazy to say this, but he was a first team preseason All American. It's like if you can replace Andrew Fisher's production with him with a transfer, and Fisher was a transfer, I just feel like all of a sudden a lot of things come into place. I love having that type of player lead off. Maybe they go Brown at leadoff, Ford at second
Mm-hmm.
eventually. You have like that as your 1-2 to start a baseball game. That completely changes how pitchers have to approach the start of a baseball game. And both those guys seem to work the count a little bit. Like that was the big thing I noticed with Brown. Like he had good at bats, not just first pitch, fastball,
Mm-hmm.
91 down the middle. Cool. He cranked it out against Nichols. Like he actually worked some at bats. He drew a walk. He's only got 2 strikeouts so far in 4 games. And of course, Ford, that's kind of what he's known for, is his ability to do that. Is there anyone else you see? But those 2 guys are awesome. Reese Chapman started hot. He's played throughout the year. Levi Clark has a ton of talent. Is there anyone you think like has to be good as well? Like, is there one guy that could, I don't want to say make or break the season, but maybe takes it another level for Tennessee?
I think Stone Lawless has to be good.
Mm-hmm.
And if I like your phrasing of it, not like we're dreaming on a guy, not suddenly this guy's an All American, just a guy who has to be good, has to be as good as we think he can be. Stone Wallace for me, I mean, he had an OPS over 1,000 last year. It's not like he was a slouch at the plate, but having that kind of pop from a positive defensive spot would be so nice. And the way I think about it is, I think it's clear that we're going to lean a little bit more defense with how we organize the team this year. And Teague already playing; he's super sharp defensively. Him and Marin up the middle, there might not be a better defensive combo up the middle in the country. But if we're going to have Antigua in there more, and you think about a guy like that, I don't think we realize how much we miss yet, is a guy like Dean Curley. Dean Curley constantly had great at bats. He wasn't afraid to find any way on base. If he got hot, he was about to spray doubles for an entire series. And he went in the second round, and he'll probably play in the bigs. When I watched at bats this past weekend, we know the opponent, et cetera, et cetera. When I watched at bats this past weekend, the way Lawless worked those at bats reminded me of Dean Curley. And so if we're trading out like Peebles, who was really solid defensively, the bat never came around. Okay, now we're even more solid at either second base or short with Antigua, but we need the bat to play up somewhere else. I think Lawless has to be that guy. And I think he can be. I mean, we know he's got power from the early series. And so if he can have good at bats and be an RBI machine in that 4 or 5 hole, then our lineup just lasts a little bit longer. And if I have one major concern about this team is that the lineup is shorter than it has been in recent years.
Yeah.
But the way it gets longer at the bottom is you're really dreaming on guys. The way it gets longer in a more reasonable fashion is that Lawless is that guy. And so especially playing catcher, can he hold up? Can he produce? We need it. We really, really need it because he's one who can pop with power, and there's not a whole lot of others.
You see any changes in approach or anything this weekend, or do you think it's Nichols too early to tell?
I think it's Nichols too early to tell. I loved the at-bats I saw from Stone. I loved the at-bats I saw from Abernathy. And then the one change I saw in Antigua is that when he got his pitch, he attacked it, which I don't know if we saw at all last year. And that's not a knock. Guys have to grow. Guys have to progress. But when he is identifying a pitch and pulling it down the left field line while still being pretty balanced, I think that's big. And so I think the one that everybody's going to dream on, like the fan answer for this question of who can pop, I think the most common answer would be Jay for a lot of
Right.
reasons. And he has the potential to be awesome. But I'm a little bit more in wait and see mode with him because I don't know where the extra base hits are coming from besides speed. Stone is one that I think can lead the team in slugging, even with some other guys that are going to play in the bigs.
And a guy that's bided his time.
Yep.
Like when he got here, I think a lot of people thought he'd play more. And whatever you want to say about Vitello and Peebles, and there was a lot of he's kind of the backup quarterback, I guess. Stone Lawless has been with Peebles' offensive struggle the last couple of years. So I absolutely agree. I think Abernathy, it's so tantalizing. Just watching him, you're just like, oh, that's that. If you had to take one guy outside of Ford, it looks like an MLB player. When you like watch him run, watch him like get to the plate, it's him. It's probably going to be more up and down than you want it. He's only a true sophomore. He didn't play much last year, but it's all of a sudden, if he's above average hitter in the SEC, and now you have Antigua, Chris Newstrom, who's gotten the 4 starts so far, who are just kind of playing good defense, working, focused on that, then it just makes the lineup deeper. And I still think Levi Clark, there's something special there. I just remember those at bats, and I know when he got to SEC play, it was a little different, right? And he beat up on some bullpen guys and the fifth, sixth, seventh bullpen arm for some lower level guys, last year. But that power is real, and if they can unlock that, Tennessee's going to put up tons of numbers this year.
The nice thing about both of these guys, the nice thing about Stone and Jay, I mean, Stone had a 24% walk rate to a 17% strikeout rate last year. It's not like a guy who's just Mike Napoli up there hacking, striking out 35% of the time and running into him every once in a while. He's having at-bats. And then you got Jay, who as a freshman last season had more walks than strikeouts. And yeah, he's a contact-oriented guy, but to go into this league and not be overpowered and be I think probably the leading returner in plate appearances, if I had to guess, because Levi had some time off during the season. That shows you that all it takes is a little bit of power clicking, and Jay goes from great defensive center fielder to suddenly a real problem late in the lineup. But I think that we're hoping for that, whereas we've seen it with Stone, a little bit more from the power.
I think, too, with Elander, wouldn't be, he's started, Stone got one day off so far, but Stone's going to be a starting catcher. I think we absolutely agree there. It'd be interesting if anybody struggles starting SEC play, how quick Elander would be willing to pull, because Tony did not. Tony went with his 9, and other than maybe playing a platoon matchup here and there, he normally stuck with 10 guys that he relied on. Curious if Elander, if it gets to May, and I'm just throwing this out here, Antigua's like playing really bad, he's struggling with the bat, or if Chris Newstrom doesn't turn around to start the year, if Elander's more willing to be quicker on the trigger with some of these.
I wonder the same, and I'm looking at it now just to kind of go back and correct and like fill in here. The leading returning PA guy is Reese Chapman, which I guess I just blanked on it. It's Reese. And then the second leading would have been Dalton Bargo, and he's in Raleigh now. And then you got Manny Marin, Levi Clark, Jay Abernathy. And so still that experience popping, and we know Jay's going to play because he's so good defensively. I have wondered, since I started thinking about the season, I think I've said one of the biggest themes is going to be Elander is going to have to get lucky pressing the right button here and there. We're not going to like it when it doesn't go well, but like he is going to need a series where Antigua is the choice and Antigua rips a couple singles. And I don't mean against Nichols, I mean against Georgia. Like, he's going to
Mhm.
need a few that things go right in terms of the hot hand in the lineup. Chasing a lineup can be one of the most frustrating things when you know you have talent and it doesn't quite all come together. And I just think we're going to be doing a good bit of it. And it's not to say if it doesn't work out perfectly every time, it's not because Elander's any sort of problem. I think that whoever the head man was this year was going to be chasing a lineup a little bit.
Mhm.
We're just going to have to live with the good and bad of it.
So now we talked about the lineup. Let's go to the weekend rotation here, or starting rotation for the Vols. You look at Vitello's tenure, and we spoke on this last week, how incredibly consistent the weekend rotation has been, especially the Friday and Saturday night guys. It might be the most impressive thing Vitello did while he was at Tennessee, other than just turning it around. You think about the Dolander, Burns, Bean juggernaut during that 23 year. Last year they have Liam Doyle, who could have gone 1-1 potentially. The pitching was incredible, and that was with AJ Russell, who was going to be the Friday night starter, only giving them 25 innings. Tegan Coons got a ton of, I like the word used, propulsion is what you said
Mm-hmm.
because of his Cape Cod performance, but it's probably someone known past him. We saw Landon Mack and Evan Blanco have really good starts. Was against Nichols, but they both showed some good stuff. First, I want you to talk about Coons and compare him to some of the studs we've seen over the years. Like what really has impressed you about Teagan, what he's done so far?
Two observations I have from film on Teagan and then his first start. I don't think I knew this just because we didn't see him a ton last year. That dude's a maniac. I mean it in a good way. You kind of have to be, but he is a psychopath. And I'm talking like if he's good, if he delivers on the promise, he seems like he could be like Liam Doyle levels of unwell, but in a good way. He was extremely intense in his start. He was extremely intense. And I saw multiple times the first guy out of the bullpen to congratulate the next guy on days he was not starting. I couldn't love that more. And I know that's like small little stuff, but when you got the 2 and the 3 going, or the bullpen guy going after Teagan, and he is the very first person out there to high five him, like he's like interrupting the ump, checking his hands to be excited for his teammate. I love that. And so those are like the kind of intangible things that I really like. From a tangible perspective, he has an arm slot, very, very kind of traditional overhand type of arm slot that makes the fastball play up. And his ability to locate the fastball low and high in the zone is what you need. It's a fastball that can play really well because of it he benefits from that. It's obviously not a rising fastball, but because of his arm angle and his velocity, it tricks us where it doesn't seem like it seems like it goes up and away from the bat when he locates it high in the zone. And so uh, if that's playing up, he's legitimately going to be able to carve through some lineups here and there. He's going to get touched up for that reason. He's still a relatively young arm in a pretty loaded conference. That fastball is going to, people are going to find it here and there. Um, I have a hard time comparing him to recent Tennessee arms because I'm not sure he's a perfect match. I'd have to compare him to Beam from a like the way he uses his fastball perspective,
Mhm.
but his breaking stuff doesn't look super similar to recent guys in my opinion. And we just still have so much more to learn about him. And so, from an arm angle, I can think of some major league guys, but I more just think of like the fastball can play and he has like a little split change, kick change, whatever the name is for it, and then breaking stuff that is good enough to keep people honest. What I was most pleased with, and I don't care if it's Nichols or not, what I was most pleased with is him going almost 7 innings. I
Mhm.
really had the impression this early in the season that he would stop at about 65, 70 pitches, and they would preserve and preserve and preserve, and he'd be out after 4, and we'd let the bullpen finish it from there, especially with the lead we had. He went 86 pitches in his first start. I'm not saying to overuse him, but when we're going into a Friday night, we got to have 6.2 from you. We got to have 7.1 from you. And otherwise, this rotation just isn't going to be what we need it to be. And that's partially colored by accidentally going back and looking at the 2023 rotation and remembering just how ridiculous it was.
Yes, it
And
just
so
unbelievable.
it's just not that. But if it's going to be anywhere near delivering on promise, it's got to be Teagan. The other guys don't have the stuff to play up the way Teagan can.
What's so interesting about him too is you look at the numbers and it's like, this is Tennessee's Friday night starter compared to last year, but he looked like a completely different guy in a good way on playing against Nichols and watching him. And they're so inexperienced because they've always had a carryover guy that they could rely on. And I know Doyle came from Ole Miss, but like he was proven when they got him. I want to talk about now Mac and Blanco. Probably not the high level stuff, at least this early in their career compared to what we've seen for Saturday and Sunday night guys at Tennessee. Where do you see them right now in their development? Obviously, they're going to have to provide innings. That's super important. But were you think they are further along than you thought they'd be based off their performance this Saturday and Sunday?
Further along, but in terms of commanding the game, further along. I'm not sure if I'm describing that well. Like in terms of they don't seem like guys who are going to get rattled at all. They don't seem like guys who are scared of the moment at all. And maybe that's just because they've pitched in relatively big time moments as relatively inexperienced guys. But like, I don't mean this in a negative way because it's a good thing. They're not going to be the Drew Beam of the staff. They're not going to be the Dolander of the staff. They're going to be the Xander Sechrist of the staff.
Mm-hmm.
And that can work in college baseball. That can really work in college baseball when you have the defense that we might have behind it.
Right.
But if we have a weekend where Teagan is off and he goes 4 innings and then the bullpen has to finish it, we're going to really need one of those two guys to step up. I think there are going to be moments this season where we're going into enemy territory and trying to take 2 out of 3. And if it's not Teagan, it's got to be those two. And they're going to have there's going to be moments where the Saturday and Sunday pitching tilt is leaning towards the other team. And that's okay, but it's not because they're going to be scared of the moment. It's not because they don't have the capability. I just don't think they're fireballers the way that we've seen sometimes. That like Marcus Phillips was a 2nd-round pick for a reason and is a super promising MLB prospect as a starting pitcher because he had a full repertoire and stuff. I don't know that either of these guys are that good.
Mm. And we might be underselling Mac a little bit. I mean, he was awesome as a freshman for Rutgers, and he looked really good. He had 9 Ks and 6 innings on his weekend start. And I thought Blanco made perfect sense to bring him in. Like just a senior who played ACC ball for 3 years. They needed a guy like that. I think the big thing that I was impressed with Coons and Mac, 2 walks between them, 1 walk each. To me, that's a good sign. Because it's one thing to strike out 11 against Nichols, but if you walk 4 against Nichols, then I'm having concerns. To be able to have 17 strikeouts and 2 Ks between those 2 guys, two true sophomores, I think is a huge sign for Tennessee. Like this might be a little better than some people thought going into this year.
The negative version of Coons is like, I mean, he has a little bit of an erratic delivery. It's repeatable, but it's a little violent. And so there were moments early in that start, and it could have just been my fear of like, I hope he can go deep in games and stuff like that. There were definitely moments where I was like, gosh, if he starts working 3-0 or working really long counts against these guys, this delivery is not going to let him go 6 or 7. And so the command has to be there, or else he's going to be like just fighting counts all day, but fighting a pitch count and fighting a workload thing. And so if he has command with it, he's going to really be able to attack some guys. And I don't know. This is a tale as old as time, but when you have a fastball like that, there's so many possibilities. And so it's one of those that, like I said, somebody is going to do something mean to that fastball at some point. But he's also going to do some mean stuff with a change off of it, and so it'll balance out.
Did the Blaine Brown 1 inning performance yesterday get your heart racing a little bit?
I was excited to see him out there. He's so nonchalant that it was so funny. Like he looked like he does in the batter's box, where he was kind of just like shrugging his shoulders and seeing what the call was, and then he struck out the side, and two of them were looking, and one of them was on a nasty, nasty little slider, and so it was perfectly fine. I don't really know that I expect him to be the Tuesday arm though very often. That surprised me a little bit.
So going into the bullpen now, to paraphrase Brad Pitt and Moneyball, you either have a good bullpen or die. If you don't
Yeah.
have a good one, then you're not going anywhere. Says he's going to need one this year. Blanco is probably going to provide innings, but I would imagine Coons and Mack, because of how young they are going to have some nights where they just don't have it. A lot of new names in the pen this year. Already seen a couple arms impress this past weekend. Like Cam Appenzeller has been awesome in his 2 appearances. Ethan Biotto and Braden Krenzel had good outings. We talked about Blaine Brown. You said he was a Tuesday starter, but I mean, having him as a weapon, the bullpen could be really nice as well. They've used a lot of guys in four games, which isn't totally uncommon against this type of competition. But like other than Appenzeller, they haven't really gone anywhere with multi-inning relief yet. So I don't see the top end talent we've become accustomed to, but I feel like this bullpen could be one of the deeper pens in the SEC. It seems like Elander really thinks that he has 5 or 6 guys he can go to.
That's what gives me actually a decent amount of peace about it. That, yeah, I don't know that we have a Nate Snead or Ben
Aaron Cone.
Joyce. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that we do. I don't know that we have anyone who's going to suddenly shoot up through the minors quickly. But I'm not convinced we don't either. I mean, Bo Rudy is built like a brick house and throws pretty hard and attacks hitters. And then you've got Arvidsson, who has done it already and is really good. And then you've got Brady Frederick, who did it at a different level, but did it really, really effectively in kind of he's going to be in that role of like, we need you to go 2 or 3 and, save us, get us out of a jam and continue to pitch after that. And so I think it's great that we know we're going to use different lineups. And so I think it's great that Blaine Brown is going to be able to affect the game in multiple ways. And then sometimes that's going to be a lefty out of the pen. But I think like you look at, I feel pretty okay with a weekend series if 1 or 2 of the starters does okay, with like Arvidsson, Frederick, Krenzel, Rudy, and then like Brown or Appenzeller getting us through the rest. It's not to say that's the only arms we have, but I think that feels pretty decent. Unless you could just tell me I could have whoever else, I feel pretty good about that. I mean, Bo Rudy, I just hadn't done a ton of homework on him other than numbers. He's like 6'4", 240 and like confident. Like he's like, give me the ball, we're gonna shut this thing down. And that gets different when you're playing at the number 5 team in the country or whatever. But I don't know. The way we've run this program, our guys do not care about that stuff. Like they want the ball more in those moments. And I know that's going to be the same with Elander.
We haven't even seen Arvidsson yet, and he might be the most important guy in the pen. And if you go to thecleanupspot.wordpress.com, which was Daniel's college baseball blog that he started, he did an awesome preview. You talked about Arvidsson being potentially the Nate Snead or potential multi-inning work and jams on big SEC weekends. You mentioned Frederick and Rudy both could be guys. I just think for me, the fact they're already showing this many arms this early, and the fact that they let Appenzeller go a little bit on Tuesday, but they were like, we're going to give guys 1 inning and let them work a little bit against UNC Asheville, I think was a sign that they really want to have a really good, deep bullpen. Even if they don't have a top-end guy this year, they're fine if they can go with 6 guys, 6 or 7.
I mean, I'm making sure I'm looking at the right column. Arvidsson last year, 38 innings, most out of the bullpen. 30 of his appearances were out of the pen. 70 strikeouts. He struck out 16.3 per 9.
Right.
And he's just sitting there for the taking. I don't know. I just think that, again, we'll see, but the bridge to Bo Rudy, if Bo Rudy ends up being in that role, where he's like, no matter what, he almost seems like he might be, no matter what the score is, you're coming in and closing out the ninth.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason we're okay doing that is because Arvidsson and Frederick can get us there. I I have some faith in the bridge from starter to closer. And I may be just misremembering, but I mean, I remember the LSU series last year where they just terrorized our bullpen and it was a really bad outcome. And some of that was
Mm-hmm.
Snead, who we love. But we have enough to mix and match and get outs. And if you do have one of these three reliable starters go 6.2, you still got to have that bridge. And that bridge is going to strike some guys out. And that's what you got to have at this level.
So Cam Appenzeller has been awesome to start the year. He's a true freshman. He was a top 30 prospect overall. This was an awesome recruiting class. And while the timing of Vitella's departure might have sucked in terms of candidates, it might have saved the recruiting class overall because it happened past National Signing Day. This was a consensus top 5 class. Perfect Game had the number 3 overall and 8 top 100 player signings. And with the transfer portal, freshman college baseball and their importance has dwindled this decade, but you still have to have a deep baseball team in college baseball. Could you see any freshmen outside of like Appenzeller? I think we're pretty confident he's going to make an impact. Any other freshmen you see that could be a factor when May rolls around?
I'm answering the question incorrectly first, just to say I did not expect Appenzeller to get this work this early.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he would be spliced in later. We've played 4 games. I think my favorite moment of all 4 of them so far was Appenzeller getting touched up by UNC Asheville and then continuing to pitch effectively for 4 innings.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first moment of the season where I realized someone else was walking out to talk to our pitcher. And this was right after Appenzeller gave up essentially a double off the wall by a true freshman on UNC Asheville. And if you're a superstar freshman, that can suck. You're out there, you're in it now, buddy. Like, this is
Right.
college baseball. And so I kind of thought, like, okay, they're going to let him get out of this inning and he's going to do crafty strikeouts and blah, 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 blah. He continued to pitch after that and he pitched better after that. And so just as a shout out, we can tell he's going to be used. And I think the best thing in the world was for him to see some adversity instead of just mowing down all these guys early on in these Tuesday series. The one I could see, and I do feel like this is a little bit of a guessing game. I think Ethan Moore is the one that I could see if Antigua doesn't hit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think Marin can clearly play multiple positions on the infield. I think Henry Ford could clearly slide out to left or slide out to right if he needed to. Like, part of his draft profile is going to be, hey, maybe third base, but corner outfielder. And so he's not going to be too shy about moving around, and everyone knows he can play first base. There's enough room in the infield that if Antigua needs to be a 7th, 8th, 9th inning defensive replacement, we need some pop somewhere. And maybe it comes from Ethan Moore. I mean, everyone was very excited to have Appenzeller on campus for very good reason. Surprised he made it to campus in a lot of ways. Ethan Moore was drafted higher than him and made it to campus, and that all has to do with like slot money and preferences and blah blah
Right.
blah blah. But so it's not exactly accurate. But you know, out of the prospects we had in our recruiting class, there were 3 or 4 that we were like, hey, it was great knowing you. We're never going to see you on this campus.
Yeah,
Have a great
exactly.
time, Billy Carlson. We appreciate you. But Appenzeller and Moore were 2 that could have taken money and been gone. And so, again, to have faith in Antigua's bat is to tell yourself a story at this point. To have faith in Antigua being the absolute best person you could bring in defensively in the late innings is just bona fide fact, I think. And so if he needs to fill that role and Marin slides over to third and Antigua comes to short and Henry Ford moves out to the outfield and we shift things around, I could see him having the impact, but it's truly a guess. I think we'll find out the next Tuesday game of who of those freshmen gets run early on.
Mhm. I think too, it you just never know with like a freshman shortstop. It's
Yeah.
just like you're playing with fire. It's so different. I mean, all these guys probably played shortstop or center field high school, right? So it's completely different, even though, like you mentioned, Moore is a top flight kid. I just Appenzeller, like you just it wouldn't shock me if maybe Mac has some control issues or anything like that, if he shifts into a weekend
Yeah.
role. Like, I don't think that's going to happen because I think Mac and Blanco are solidified, and the fact they announced it so early, I think it was clear those three were the best options. But I mean, the fact that Appenzeller's already pitching 4 innings in the game shows me like they are preparing just in case. Like if there's an injury or something, he seems like he's going to slot right in.
He's that long man or swing man that is not an afterthought. You need him. And so he's sitting
Right.
right there. I mean, you're right about a guy like Moore is like, hey, we never really see freshmen play shortstop in the SEC. Yeah, because if you can play freshman as shortstop in the SEC, you're not in the SEC.
You're
You're
right.
in the
Yeah, exactly.
you're drafted and signed. And so, to hit that exact middle point as a relatively young guy who's a switch hitter, it'd be awesome. But it's a it's a it's a Tuesday night world, not a Friday night world, I think, for this
Right.
season.
It's been 4 games. Nichols and UNC Asheville. I don't. No offense to those programs. I don't think we're going to see them in Omaha. So I'm not going to make any insane predictions or just because Tennessee's 4-0, we can book those tickets. But even if Vitella was on staff, this was going to be a retooling year. And I think you've even said this, it's actually a rebuilding year. I can't remember the last time Tennessee was outside the top 10, like preseason. It's been a long time. A lot of talent, a lot of it young, new coaching staff. But 4 games in, can you give me what you think is going to be the biggest strength of this team?
If I have to do the absolute ceiling of a guy, it's going to be Tegan Canes.
Mm-hmm.
A Friday night starter that could legitimately be a first round college arm, if that happens, is the biggest ceiling, the biggest strength of the team. We have a Friday night starter that can Liam Doyle a little bit and say, hey everyone in Athens or Oxford or wherever else we're going, I love that you're here on a Friday night. You're about to have a bad night. If we have that a few times this year, that could really, really help us in the SEC. There's other ones I could mention, but if I have to think about a ceiling and a strength, it's that one Friday night arm that otherwise is kind of missing a little bit.
I would say, and it's early, defense matters so much in college baseball because unlike the pros where 99% of the plays are made, it's like 90%.
There's a reason bunting is more common because it's truly a defensive test.
Exactly. Right now, when I look at how athletic this team is defensively, I'm just like, man, if you are 25% better defensively than your opponent on average, you're going to swing yourself some games. Just because there's going to be some freshman second baseman for some other SEC school that has 2 errors in a game, and you're not doing that, that's going to win you games. So right now, I think like the defense athleticism of the team, which last year's team was not very athletic. I think that's fair to say. Adding this athleticism and having defense, taking extra bases, a little more quickness with the bat, I think could really make an impact, a positive one for this program.
Yeah, it's one of those where, again, going back to like, of course, we hope the starters perform well, but you always got to have that bridge. That bridge has a really nice backing. It reminds me a little bit of like, I'm not comparing talent-wise, but in recent years, the Cubs pitching staff has essentially been spoiled by having Dansby and Nico and PCA now out in the outfield. Not comparing those guys to Tennessee's up the middle defense, but having bullpen arms who can strike guys out, but then bullpen arms who are also going to generate weak contact and good fielding, we could see some games where it's like, okay, our offense has gotten us to a 5-3 lead, and the game ends 5-3. And we're going to have to win games like that, not 11-2 this year.
Mm-hmm. What is your biggest concern so far? And it might not even be 4 games in because they've played really well, but just in general.
My biggest concern is Levi Clark.
Oh, Okay, so one player is your biggest concern.
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of not having that big booming bat that complements what we have some faith in as a decent top two. And again, this is playing slightly off of the top two being hot in the first series and Clark not being hot in the first series. But I mean, he's in the 3 hole right now after being relatively cold during parts of the season. I like his approach. We know he has power. He's not up there having terrible at bats, but he's not impacting pitches that he's attacking right now. And I think that became a little bit of a theme last year where he was a little more part-time in his role later in the season. He was still having great at bats. He was still attacking. But when he was attacking, he wasn't impacting like he was early in the season. And, whether it's a long season or just a little bit of adjustment needs to be made. I just worry about that becoming a hole in the lineup. And if it goes really badly, then we're suddenly in tinker mode where the other person that can play third base is Ford, and what does that do to the lineup and things like that. I don't necessarily think it's going to get that bad. But if we do have some faith in Brown that he's going to play above his raw numbers from last year, if we do have some faith in Ford to be that kind of first round talent, we need somebody who is occasionally just going to hit one to the flipping moon, because that's the other big thing we're missing. And he's the guy who can do it. I just hope that it works.
You sometimes lose College World Series because your 7 through 9 can't get a hit. I'm not saying this team's that's gonna happen. And since he gets to Omaha College World Series, then we'll worry about 7 through 9 then. But that would be my concern. I feel like there's going to be a couple games this year where, it's the 6, 7, 8 coming up in a 1-run game in the bottom of the 8th. The big important inning here. It's strike out, weak grounder second, pop up the left field. I feel like right now that would be my biggest concern.
Some of the biggest opponents we have out there, and I don't even mean on the schedule, I just mean in the SEC, they have these lineups where they're just going to tack on and tack on and tack on. And I'm not saying we don't have that potential, but Texas is a bear right now. Mm-hmm. Mississippi State is a bear right now. Mississippi State was already going to be good and they added guys. And so I worry a little bit about it's not unheard of for the bullpen to give up a run here and there. It's going to be hard to answer if we're at that defensive part of the order a little bit. Or just getting us back to the top of the order. Let's say my concerns about Levi Clark are overstated, but we just desperately need to get back to Ford, Brown, and Clark. I mean, Ford, Brown, the good version of Clark, and Reese is let's go. But you're right that the bottom of the order, it's just a little lighter, and it's bound to be, but it can't be too light.
I think about the 2014 and Dean Curley, Kavares Tears, Cal Stark, all had big hits in that run, batting 6, 7, 8, 9. You just wonder if they get into big games, you go in an NCAA tournament, can you trust Antigua to get you a big hit? If Clark has to drop down the lineup, can they trust Clark? Is Abernathy going to be ready for those moments? Is Chris Newstrom going to be ready for those moments? So that would be my biggest concern. Overall, what's a successful season?
A successful season is successful, but optimistic season is finish top 5 in the SEC, host. I don't know exactly how that will shake out, but host, and then give somebody hell when you host. You can't go 2 and out or whatever. Getting to the Supers would be awesome, because if you get to the Supers, it's right there for you.
Right.
And you could wind up with there's a way to craft a matchup in the Supers where it's well, this is a fun ride, but we're in a little bit of trouble here. But you get us to the Supers with our bullpen and Teagan, you win that first game and you got somebody on the ropes. Like I would sign up for that right now.
I would say for me, if you're hosting a regional,
Yeah.
you're one of the 16 best teams in the country, essentially. And if you're able to do that in year one with as much as you've lost and how young this team is, I think you're in a great shape. Even if you you don't want to lose like the 1-4 matchup Friday night and then go out too. Like that's not good.
Right.
But if you host and win your Friday night game and give yourself a chance and then go from there, I'd be very happy with that. And I would say too, just like I want to see if the pitching staff's like top 25% Tennessee. This could somehow be a top 4 pitching staff in the SEC. Like long term, that's huge because of how important Frank Anderson was to this program. I think that alleviates a lot of my concerns I would have about the Elander hire, which isn't many, I should say. I don't want people. I think it was the absolute right hire, but I think the biggest question mark is can he handle a pitching staff with Anderson leaving? So if you're able to have a maybe not top 4, but top 5, top 6 pitching staff this year, and with maybe not the most talented group ever, I think you feel really good about the future of the
You
program.
have to feel really good about it. And I know a little bit more, admittedly, at this point in the season. I know a little bit more about like the bats around the SEC as opposed to the
Mm-hmm.
arms around the SEC. Like I just don't have polished knowledge of who the Friday night starters are all over the place. But if we can get to a point where like Teagan is getting this first round buzz and the rest of the staff comes together and even some guys pop, staff's just going to be looking really good from that perspective. And so, I think about the fact that we're going to be doing a little bit of this early in the season with like we're still waiting on Garrett Wright and a couple others to come back from being dinged up, and those are guys who have produced. And so maybe there's help on the way for the offense, and then the concern rolls back around to the pitching staff. And so I don't know. It's such a tough conference that you can finish middle of the road just with a couple
Mm-hmm.
things going badly. If we're high on that conference ranking and we're hosting, it's like uh, it would take a lot of twisting and turning logic to be unhappy about that. Not that people won't be, but I think that would be doing yourself a disservice as a fan. That'd be a cool outcome,
And let's give a little grace to the first year manager
honestly.
taking over for a legend
Taking over for a legend, it's like you, you don't
in a
get
shocking move.
in a shocking move in a way that he held the team together in a way that I don't know, like I don't mean to paint this picture negatively because he's an awesome coach, but if all this had happened when the rumors started flying and Vitello hadn't worked out and they hadn't come to an agreement and he would have been back and he had one foot halfway out the door the whole time and he was, making eyes at the Mets or whatever. With this roster, it could easily be that we're fighting for fifth in the SEC and hoping we host.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is a world where the rumors start flying halfway through a relatively disappointing baseball season, and then we feel really on the ropes because it happens at a worse time and we don't hold the roster together and we don't have a guy like Henry Ford already on board. And so I don't know, college baseball, like teams are reloading everywhere,
Right.
but you don't get to just bring in Billy Carlson to campus. He's going to go play for the White Sox pretty soon. And so
Mm-hmm.
I it's one of those, I said this with football too. This is my theme as a fan. I'm excited. I want to roll with the dudes we have, but we are going to lose games. We are not going to run roughshod through this schedule. It's just not going to happen.
You have any thoughts on Vitello's comments on Monday? You want to?
I think that guy should just stay away from a microphone for a little while. I don't know, man.
A little different than Knoxville media with two people there, right?
I just think that the best he would do himself a very good service by just like starting to talk about Logan Webb a little bit. You
Logan
have
Webb's
a
really
good roster. You have the ability to probably add to it. You're not going to be better than the Dodgers, but you could easily be second in that division. As much as you can, shift your focus to the NL West, buddy, because you sounded like a complete weirdo was my best description of it. And that is not sour grapes. Whatever. Thank you.
Flags fly forever.
But you just sounded
It was weird.
Weird. Yeah, it was
It
strange.
sounded like regret, but that's here and there. We're on a new era. So
I think it was probably just more of like stumbling and bad explanation. He was going to be gone somewhere at some point. It just is the first destination of it. And so it's not, there's not going to be a reunion. I don't care how sloppy that response was. There's not going to be a reunion.
No, there's not.
He just needs to find ways to focus on the team because they're decent.
Yeah, I agree. And hopefully we just don't have to hear about it anymore. Hopefully this is the last time. And Vitello, we wish him success. And if the Giants do great, then the Dodgers don't. So that makes us happy.
Let me say this. If we continue to hear about it again after this, he's thinking about it a hell of a lot more than Tennessee fans are.
Exactly.
Because I actually don't think anybody
eyeing his next SEC job.
Yeah, I don't think anybody was thinking about it this weekend. And so, we'll see when you take over the Texas A&M job or whatever in a few years.
All right, so basketball, much better than our discussion last week. 3-0, 3 relatively solid wins, nothing crazy other than Met had 2 really good games. Ethan Berg had a nice revival Saturday against Mississippi State. Okpara is looking more and more like himself. Estrella did not play tonight. Seemed like maybe not the end of the world, but when I hear big men and foot injuries, I immediately start panicking. We'll see how he comes on Saturday. Any overall thoughts? Anything changed since we've talked last 3 games? Glad to see a little more consistency. Anything that you could think of that any changes over the last 3?
I mean, I have one silly one and then one normal one. Bishop Oswald had the coolest play of the year.
It was awesome.
It was awesome against Mississippi State. And so props to him that is such a Bishop Oswald play. And I'm glad that it was all in one sequence instead of, divided up throughout the season. And so that was super cool. Overall, I just think when the competition he's already been good against good competition. When the competition is a little bit lower, Nate Ament is just doing what he wants to offensively on a basketball court.
Mm-hmm.
And that needs to continue. And we've got some challenges coming up, but we're getting to a point where we need things to come together a little bit, but none of this is a Nate Ament problem. And that's a good spot to be because I think some people were already out on him and in early parts of the season in ways that they forget that people can get better. And so I love watching him play.
They've won 7 of their last 8 out of the last 10, and their 2 losses were combined 5 points against the same team. They're literally 2 shots away from about a 10-game winning streak.
Yeah, and like tonight was like ugly. They're not doing the thing where they're letting people hang around as much anymore. And so, again, that needs to continue. There's multiple games coming up that needs to continue. But I'll say it this way. Like, Tennessee baseball plays UCLA coming up. They play Georgia coming up. It's all exciting. Give me a reason to continue to watch. And Nate's a reason. But as in, continue to rise so that once that tournament rolls around, we're like, holy crap, our heads are spinning because we have a chance here. And they do based on their results, but they got to show it.
Offensive efficiency is creeping up. They're now 31st in offensive efficiency in the country.
It's not bad, man.
No, and now, sure, again, that 45% offensive rebounding rate's just staring you right in the face, but their effective field goal percentage is slightly creeping up. Their turnover rate is getting a little better. If Jalen Carey hit free throws, they'd be in even a better spot. But they seem to be getting a little bit more comfortable, and part of that is just Nate's hitting shots. Nate's to go last, what was it, about 5 weeks ago, we're just like, man, how is this guy getting first round buzz, let alone lottery buzz? And now it's like, man, there is some Carmelo Anthony in that game, isn't there? Just in 5 short weeks is a credit to him. And unfortunately, we live in the microwave world with freshmen, especially. And this freshman class is so sick. I think that didn't help. It's just watching AJ DeBonsa. I'm like, why is this kid in college?
I know.
It's like watching Cameron Boozer. It's like, is this the most efficient freshman I've seen since Kevin Durant? It's crazy. And those are just 2 of
And
seven
neither
or
of
eight
those
guys.
guys will probably be the top pick, which is incredible.
No, and I mean, if Darren Peterson liked basketball, I mean,
Be
good Lord,
so
what could
great.
happen? I know, exactly. So, like, Nate turning the corner, and now you see the vision, and you just see, like, man, the shot making, the length. He plays his ass off on defense, and he's 18, and he can rebound. And he had a beautiful pass to Jalen Carey that Carey smoked the layup on. It, like, literally got a groan from my girlfriend because I was like, I cussed. I was like, really, dude? But I mean, he had a beautiful pass to play with Brown, the quick dump off on the zone, and he immediately cut. Like, that wasn't a design play. That's him reading the defense out in real time, and a great pass from Dwayne Brown. Like, you just see it. And if he can play like this and Gillespie can get hot for 2 weeks,
Yeah.
you can see where this goes. And I don't think they're going to make the Final Four right now. I just don't think they have the offensive capability, but I am feeling much better about this team than I did a month ago.
Yeah, I'll say it this way, and I actually started to think about this today. I was walking across campus, and I heard a couple people talking about March Madness. I don't think they're making the Final Four necessarily, like, as in, there's no reason to predict that one way or the other. But some of the teams that I know for damn sure would give them trouble, like a Michigan,
Mm-hmm.
you need that higher seed so that you don't have to worry about them early on.
Right.
You don't need to be a 7 seed where you're suddenly going to run into like a rematch with Houston earlier than you want to. Play well for the next 3 weeks and give yourself the ability to see somebody later who's going to be a massive problem, not see somebody get to the Sweet 16 that could be a massive problem. And so, I mean, I'm thinking about the end of the season here. You got to beat Alabama. You got to beat Missouri and South Carolina. Hopefully that's a given. It's not, but hopefully it is. And then you have to split with Vandy. You can't drop stupid ones at this point because you have a chance to be where you want to be.
Right. Is this the biggest Tennessee Vanderbilt basketball game since Lofton was in school? Like,
I
I was
feel like we're
looking at it. I
missing
mean,
one.
Vanderbilt's been really terrible. I know when Tennessee was number one with Grant hit like 22 free throws or whatnot, but that was a bad Vanderbilt team, actually. Like, it was not a good one. But I'm kind of looking at it. I mean, Vanderbilt's only made the tournament 3 times since 2012. I mean, there's a lot of losing seasons in there. Like, I'm thinking, I mean, I
Really?
can't remember the last time that there was a top 20 matchup. Yeah, I mean, Stackhouse, it was not pretty under Stackhouse. The fact he lasted as long as he did was a minor miracle. But I mean, I maybe in 17 when Tennessee kind of was on the come up and Bryce Drew was there, maybe they had a big game, but like it's been a long time. And it felt like when Pearl and Stallings were duking it out those first few years, felt like Tennessee Vanderbilt was a big game every time. So it's nice that this is going to be, I mean, that's stupid Jim, God forbid. But I mean, it should be a really fun game Saturday.
It's a big one, and there's all sorts of big ones this time of year. But we get to have some fun with Tennessee sports coming up. I mean, we've got that game Saturday. The Vols softball team is off to a almost as hot a start as you could want, and then the February 27th matchup between Tennessee and UCLA, who's the number one team in the country in baseball, at I think the Ranger Stadium, kind of one of those showcase type tournaments, is like we have a chance to have real momentum in the spring coming up here, and all of that leading into the SEC tournament and then March Madness is like this has a chance to be a really fun stretch. And the thing to remember, you only get Nate for about 8 more games, guys.
Yep.
And that's not me trying to be pessimistic, but like we can say all we want about his development and his percentages and blah, blah, blah. He's going to go be the number 6 or 7 pick in the draft no matter what happens.
And deserved.
And yeah, like he's going to be a pacer or whatever else. And so don't let your frustrations about the season rob you of enjoying a player like this for the next 5 games or 8 games or 10 games, whatever it ends up being.
Also, maybe we'll know if Joey Aguilar can play football in a couple weeks.
maybe next year he'll take over Gillespie and start draining threes or something at this point.
Anything else we need to cover, or we got everything?
Nothing else. We'll keep coming at people with baseball and basketball. And I think we'll have fun analysis on both. I think it's going to be joint for a while in a really good way.
Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate you so much. Please download, subscribe, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're on YouTube. Wherever you get your podcasts, we appreciate you listening. Take care and go Vols.